Attorney General Sessions, reporting, including the New York Times, that Sessions offered to resign. The Times also reporting that the FBI Director Comey asked Sessions not to leave him alone with the President of the United States. All of it as tension is rising, with Jim Comey about to testify before the Senate Intelligence Committee on Thursday. We're going to preview the Comey hearings in just a moment. Gloria Borger's got some exclusive reporting on that just ahead. Back with the panel right now. Gloria, the idea of Jeff Sessions, offering to resign, he left his career in the Senate for this job. He's the top law enforcement official in the United States. Hard to imagine him ever even broaching the possibility of leaving unless tensions were pretty high or he felt this, would really impede his ability to do his job.
Absolutely. Don't forget, he was the first senator to come out and endorse Donald Trump. He traveled with him. He was a close advisor, and he had a difficult confirmation. It wasn't as if it was a cakewalk getting to this job, and he knew it was going to be difficult. And so you can imagine the tensions that arise, and it's specifically because Sessions feels that perhaps the president was trying to stop him from doing his job, which is, as was stated earlier, to be independent. And Donald Trump believes that everybody works for him and that the people who work for him ought to be able to fix things when things go awry. And that is not the way government works, because people work for the government and the country and not in particular for the President of the United States, particularly when it comes to questions of law enforcement. And that was his trouble with James Comey, and I gather that's his trouble with Jeff Sessions.
Well, also, Ken, it's interesting, if Jeff Sessions, and again, this, according to the New York Times, based on two sources, this happened sometime in the last 8 weeks. We don't know the exact date on this, but if Jeff Sessions did resign, then the Deputy Attorney General would take over, who is, the one, Rosenstein, who appointed the special counsel, not something that the President was obviously all that thrilled about.
Right. Well, and I would also point out that when they fired Director Comey, that left Andrew McCabe in charge of the FBI, who, what evidence exists, suggests he has Democratic leanings. That's not something you'd expect to be favorable to the president either. And that didn't stop that decision. But at the same time, Comey was somebody who a lot of us have been calling for the resignation or firing for a year now, and on both sides of the aisle. So there's a little more substance to that. It's a different situation with Attorney General Sessions, where presumably the only reason he might offer a resignation is if he didn't believe that he could be left free to do the job, the part of the job where he's supposed to be of the president, to do it independently. And, who knows when we'll know that, but that would be the only reason I can think of for former Senator Jeff Sessions to give up a choice slot.
And that's a worrying, that's a worry, if that is in fact, a concern about his ability to do the job independently. That's obviously, that is a cause for concern, obviously.
Sure it is. Yeah. Absolutely.
And it's also extremely rare for tensions between the President of the United States and his Attorney General to get out in public like that.
You have to wonder if Sessions wanted this out, if he wanted to be known. Because frankly, this story makes Sessions look good. The fact that Sessions is trying to keep the firewall between the public to know that, because so far what we know of his tenure at the Justice Department is his mistake in his testimony not disclosing his contacts with the Russians, saying he would recuse himself from the Russia investigation, but then not actually recusing himself, including recommending that the actual investigator get fired. One other thing to point out is most of the actions that Trump has taken to sort of bottle up this investigation, they all have backfired. I mean, he's done it in a sort of ham-handed way. If he hadn't fired Comey, we wouldn't have this special counsel. The special counsel is probably worse for him than the investigation being in the leadership of the Justice Department. Same thing happened with the House Intelligence Committee investigation. He tried to control Nunes. That backfired. Nunes had to recuse himself.
Steve, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, but keep in mind, it's been less than 36 hours since President Trump basically threw the entire Justice Department, Jeff Sessions included, under his Twitter bus. When he basically said anything that goes wrong with the second iteration of the travel ban, it's all the Justice Department's fault. So
he was talking about they did this as if like he was a bystander to.
Exactly, and so Anderson, I think we're quickly reaching a point where it's getting very hard for senior government officials, to want to serve in this administration if the price for doing anything independent, if the price for doing anything, even that they're told to do, but they get struck down by the courts, is to be called out publicly by the president, that might have a lot to say for why it's been so hard for President Trump to find nominees for all of these really important open government posts, like, dare I say, the FBI director.
It might explain the leaks as well. I mean, and when you declare war on the FBI, when you say things about the Department of Justice, surprise, surprise, all of a sudden, information starts leaking out.
We got to take a quick break. More to discuss in a moment. Gloria Borger is reporting on what Director Comey is